Alrighty, so we're going to get started on the build. Now the first thing you want to do when you take all the foam parts out of your box, you'll notice some of the parts are still in the foam. So what we're going to do is we're going to just clean all these up right now. We're going to get them all off the trash. Keep a trash can next to you when you're doing this, that way you can get rid of your trash as you're cutting. And you want to cut right up alongside the part that you need. So if I'm cutting out an aileron, you want to go flush up against that side and just clip it. And be careful not to go at an angle because you will clip into the aileron or whichever part you are cutting. So when you're done, just put the part over here to the side, continue over here, and you're just going to do the same thing with all of them. Just like that. The wing is just ready to put to the side. If you have any little burrs like this, I don't know if you can see it, let me bring it up a little bit. If you can see that, there's a little bit of a burr there because sometimes the bit that we use to cut it will sink down a bit, so you'll get the top of the bit just barely getting through the foam, so you'll have a little bit of that buzz. Very rarely does this happen, but if there is, it's no big deal. Just take a knife and clean off of it. I'm using the knife backwards just to sort of get rid of it. And move this part aside. Take the aileron out of its shaft. Chuck that onto the fuse. If you notice on your foam, on the top fuselage piece, you'll have a on our vertical servo cutouts. We've got when I'm done cutting this out, I'll bring it up to the camera so you can see it. But what we do is when we cut our top fuselage, we notice that when you put the top fuselage together, after you put everything else together, the servos have tabs on them, which stick up a little bit higher. So, if you can see here, we've actually made those little indents for you. So that way, when you put the servo, or when you put the top fuse on there, it doesn't raise the piece up any higher. So it lays flush, and you get a good adhesion to it. So, let's go with the bottom fuse right now. This one is ready to get rid of. Alright, let's check this. Put this one aside. This one looks fairly clean. Just a little bit right here. The next piece we're going to cut is our elevator step. Let's cut this. Same thing as all of the others. Careful not to go into the foam. Or into the part you need. The landing gear, you can choose to do this now, or you can do it when you need it, because we won't need this for a while down the video. But if you'd like to, you can clip them on now. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Get rid of all this. Side of the part like that. Those are our wheel pants, and here's the landing gear piece. Pieces that get butted up right up against the carbon. actually better if you use less blade when you're doing this, so you have less chance of cutting anything else. Check this. Alright, first thing we're going to do is the beveling. I lied. First thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up our parts. I've noticed a little bit more fuzz on these, and sometimes you'll have tabs sticking up on the outside. We just do that so we can get them done quick, so we can all ship them to you on the same day. Just want to clean all that up, clean up your little tabs, because when we cut them from the machine, you have what's called a tab, and they pretty much just, like when we were cutting our parts out of the foam, all these pieces have that, so we just take care of that at the building. But you'll get a little bit of them sticking up, so you want to just clean this off. Clean up our area. Let's see what else. These need cleaning up. Locate any little tabs you have sticking up there and just make sure you clean them off. Those should be good for now. Now, tool-wise, the list of tools you're going to need for this procedure and for the rest of your build, you're going to need, if you're using a turn-to-G motor like this, you're going to be using screws and you're going to be using the motor mount. So you're going to need a drill, and depending on who sells your turn-to-G motor, you're going to have different screws. So look for a drill bit that is slightly smaller than the threads of your motor mount screws, and that'll be used for pilot holing later. And we'll leave that right there. You need a sanding block, a lighter. This is going to be for your heat shrink. You don't need a lighter. You can also use a heat gun if you're if you're doing you're going to be using heat shrink on your aileron control rod, so you can use that. But the reason I like to do this is because it's a little bit more pinpoint and you have a little bit less chance of melting the foam. So if you angle it out a certain way, you should be fine just getting in there like that, and that way you don't melt anything. So either that, or you can use a heat gun if you find a way to stick something in between there so you don't melt it up. You're going to need your Scotch tape. You're going to need your pliers with cutters, or you can have pliers and wire cutters separate. I'm using a very thin ruler. It's stainless steel, so I don't actually cut into the ruler itself. The reason you want a really thin one is because for what we're about to do with our beveling, we're going to be cutting at a 45-degree angle, and it's a lot easier when there's nothing really to offset the cut. So when you cut, you're going to be cutting at a 45 like this all the way down. So you're going to need that. You're going to need, I think you're going to need this. Well, I'm using it because you're going to have to end up taking off the screws for your servos to get them centered and everything like that. So you're also going to need a thin or a small Phillips screwdriver. Okay, let's get ready and let's get started on the beveling of our surfaces. Let's grab the elevator stab. You're going to need your tail coupling. I lied, you don't need your tail coupling. Some kits come with the stab and tail coupling as one. You're going to need your elevator, you're going to need your rudder, ailerons, and your wing. And then we'll get started on you're going to have to bevel the tail of the fuselage too as well. But let's do one part at a time here. Let's do our stab first. Now, if you can feel on the foam, sometimes you'll get a sheet of foam that has a rough side and a smooth side. You're going to want, if you do have that that characteristic with your foam, you're going to want the rough side up. It just looks a little bit nicer when it's flying and you have a smooth surface pointing straight up. So you want to bevel the rough side. So what you're going to do is, because the foam is 3 millimeters thick, you're going to want to bring the ruler back exactly that thickness. So you're going to want to go 3 millimeters back so you get a perfect 45. And you're just going to drag it all the way across. Make sure you have a sharp blade for this too. And save your trash. This trash will be used for a very cool technique later on in the build. And so that one looks perfect. Let's move that over here. The next piece we're going to do is our aileron, rough side up, like so. I want to do 3 millimeters back. Now when you have a counterbalance like this, you're going to want to take your knife and go all the way alongside this counterbalance and just sort of go a little 45-degree cut right there. And the reason we do that is because once we come all the way across, this piece will come off clean and the edge will be perfectly flush to the counterbalance. So let's bring this across. Make sure that cuts off clean, save your trash. You're only saving this trash, this is the only part you have to save. Let's bring that over here. Let's take this piece, let's move it over here with the rest of them. Or with the good pieces. Let's do our next aileron, rough side up. You have a little bit of a tab in there, that's not a big deal because those will be cut off with the bevel. 3 millimeters back. You want to take a knife, do that same thing with the counterbalance. Make sure you clean that up. And just go right alongside like that. Take your trash. You actually only need about 3 strips of that bevel material because it's a very small job. But bring that over here. Same thing with the wing, you're going to want to go rough side up. The only difference now is instead of doing it on the counterbalance, you're going to want to do the same thing that you do on your counterbalances over here on the fuselage. Right here. This would be technically your horizontal fuselage area. And so what you want to do is just sort of take that and clean that up like you would on the aileron. Take this and clean it up a little bit and start your bevel. We can begin to throw the rest of them away once we have about 3. Let's move this over. Same thing on the other side. The wing is now done. Bring that over there. Now, let's actually do the fuselage first. Now, same thing with this one. You want to find the rough side of it. It doesn't really matter. You can do the thin side of the fuselage. Just when you bevel your fuselage, you're going to want to remember which side that was. So that way, when you go to bevel your rudder, you remember exactly which side that was. And that's how it's going to be done. So for now, let's just make sure we get these all flush here, and then we can take our rudder, or our ruler, and 3 millimeters back. Just do the same thing like you did in all the others. Get rid of your trash. Put these over there. I'm going to take your rudder. I still have that on the same side, so now we're going to bring this over here. The rudder is the only piece that has a different, the textures on each side of the rudder don't match up with the fuselage, so what you're going to do is just remember which side you beveled the fuselage, so you remember which side to bevel the rudder. So we're going to go alongside like this. First do that counterbalance in there, clean that up, and start the bevel. There's that, and our last piece for beveling, we're going to do our elevator, rough side up. We've got 2 counterbalances here, so we're going to want to go one here and one over here. And same thing as all the others. Knife's getting a bit dull right here, so if you have a retractable blade like this, I'm using a hybrid retractable. What you can do is, if you can see that in the light there, it's got grooves going at a diagonal right here, going all the way down. So what you're going to want to do is kind of cover your eyes or take a sacrificial piece of something. You can even take your ruler for all it matters, and just take that little edge and make sure you kind of pop it down at a 45-degree angle and push down and snap it. Get rid of that. So now we've got a sharp tip again for puncturing. The next thing we're going to do is our hinge tape. So you're going to want to find your roll of blender, and you're going to start with, I prefer to start with the little pieces, so let's find our tail stab. Now when you do this, because you've got a little bit of a, this should actually fit perfectly flush in there. There should be no gap in there. It should be very clean. But what you want is, you want to make sure that that's completely free of bindage. So what you're going to want to do is just cut a little bit of that off. Or if you don't feel comfortable with your knife, you can take it and you can sand it. But for me, I like to do it quick, and I'll just take a little bit of it off right there. Just a little bit on both sides. Literally just a sliver. And that's all you need. So now we've done that, we're going to do this piece first. You always do your surface, on the tail you're going to do your stab first. So you're going to find the end of your tape here. And when you pull your tape over the piece, you're going to want to hang over it a little bit on each side, so that way you have, you want to make sure you have a nice clean piece that's actually making contact with the surface. Sometimes our hands are oily, so you'll, once you touch the tape, it actually won't stick on that end that you touched it with. So now that that's made contact there, I'll just pull this piece over and clip it. And just put it on the side of your cardboard or whatever you have. Now you're going to take your surface, or your control surface, you're going to take this piece, make sure you just get an equal amount on both sides. Notice how a good bevel should look, if you can see that. And we've got perfect 90 on each side. Well, we've got perfect 90 on the bevel side. So now that this piece is done, we'll move this aside. The rudder, you're not gonna hinge tape. You're gonna leave that for the very last. We'll move that aside. You're gonna need let's move the fuselage aside as well. And let's do the wing and your ailerons. Now I like to do the control surfaces first on this area. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our aileron, lay it flat. Now because you have that little counterbalance there, you're going to want to just go a little bit over on each side with your thumb here. If you have your right aileron like this, you're going to want to take your right hand, hold the tape like this, and take your thumb and just sort of rotate it so you can use it for angling much better. Bring that over. Lightly tap it down first so you don't create any wrinkles like that I just did. And don't push that area down just all the way up until the counterbalance is fine right now. And now what you're going to do is you're going to leave that there. You're going to clip that right alongside the edge. Let me rotate this so you can see it. You're going to want to slice that right across the edge there. So the tape aside. Now because we haven't pushed this part down, you should be able to still lift it up. And you're going to want to cut it like this right alongside the aileron. Should find your trash. You can leave this the way it is. Leave it aside, make sure it's not touching anything. I just like to get both of them done at once. Same thing, just different hands. Left side, holding it with your finger. You want half on, half off on your tape too, by the way. Now we're going to take this piece off like we did on the last one. Roll it up a bit and just clip it alongside that counterbalance like so. I was trying to avoid that. The problem with using cardboard is the second you drop your hinge tape on it, it really pulls it up. So I'm going to clean that up and just get rid of it. You've got enough tape on this roll for about, I don't know, about 3 planes, so it's not a big deal if you worry. Or if you get a little bit off, you get a little bit stuck to the tape. So now, same thing like we did with our elevator. Let's put this. I want to keep that flat. What I want to do is clean out this tab a bit first. Just make sure we have a nice clean setup there. Now, because it's going to be moving in here, you want a little bit of a gap in between your counterbalance and the wing. And once you do that, you'll also create a perfect amount of gap over here. And so you want to just drop that down right alongside. Make sure you get a good even gap, nice thin gap in between the surface and the aileron. And we have now a perfect aileron. What we're going to do is we're going to work it a bit, make sure we get that tape really broken in. It's fine this way, it's not a big deal, but that's pretty much the main way you want to do it. So we've got this side done. Let's take the other one you had over here. Pull it off. Alright, I'm going to clean up that little tab right there. You can also just use the back of your knife and sort of clean it up. Now, start over here with the counterbalance. Make sure you get a good gap in between the wing and the counterbalance, and a good gap on the bevel, and then just drop it down. Alright, have a perfect bevel on both sides. Our wing is now ready to go. Got a perfect hinge on both sides. And we can put this aside. Let's take our elevator like that. Now we can get started with the gluing. That'll be done in the next video.